Hello, children. It's time for your history class. Meet your history teacher. I know you all must be really excited. So let's start with today's class. We will be continuing with the first chapter of history, the modern period. But wait, who is this guy? What is he doing here? I guess he's saying hello to everyone. Hmm. I will introduce him to all of you. He is a well known TV character. His name is Mr. SpongeBob. And the good news for all of us is that he will be joining us during our online classes. So, let's start with the class. You must be thinking that how will he understand what we have already done in this chapter? So, let's revise what we have learned in the previous class of history. In the last class, we have learned that history is the study of changes over time. The study of history has evolved and developed over time. The act or process of dividing history into periods is called the periodization of history, and this is done to make the study of history more simpler. It is the division of time to study the political, social, and economic changes of the past. Historians have divided history into three periods: the ancient period, the medieval period, and the modern period. You have already read about the ancient and the medieval period in your class 6th and 7th, respectively. In class 8th, we will be exploring the modern period. The modern period began in the 18th century. The change from the medieval to modern period occurred with the arrival of the British on the shores of India. Some of the defining features of modern period are urbanization, industrialization, scientific progress, and colonization. However, all these features were missing in the modern period of India. British rule in India can hardly be described as modern. It was the colonial period. I hope every one of you has recalled all these important points. So, in this class, we will be doing the next three topics of this chapter, and these three topics are time in history, four questions of history, interpretations in history. Look how excited he is. So, let's begin with the first topic, that is time in history. Oh, wait, he is looking so confused. But why? Hmm. I guess he is thinking that now he has to learn a lot of dates in history, like every other person thinks. People believe that history is just about learning dates and years. You may have heard people saying, I find history boring because it's all about memorizing dates. But it's not true. There was a time when historians were fascinated with dates. They were interested in the dates on which rulers were crowned or battles were fought. But now, a span of time is more important in history rather than a precise date. History that was taught earlier was all political history. It is easier to define dates for events in political history, but there is no exact time for other social and economical event. Now, can any one of you give a suitable example for it? I can see a hand at the back. Yes, you can give your answer. For example, people in India did not begin drinking tea one fine day. They gradually developed a taste of it over time, and there is no clear date for such process. Just see how surprisingly he is looking at his cup of tea. Some historical questions might be coming in his mind. Let's discuss some more examples to have a better understanding of this concept. We know the events of revolt of 1857 date and year wise, but for social and cultural history, exact dates cannot be assigned. Similarly, we cannot tell the exact day, month, year when the feeling of nationalism started growing among the people of India. Let's move further to the next topic: four questions of history. To know the history of a period, four questions are really important. And these four questions are: what happened? When did it happen? Where did it happen? How did it happen? While we can be sure of the first question, that is, what happened, but there cannot be a precise answer to the other three questions. For example, we know that the British colonized India, but we can't pinpoint a region and say that it happened here. Also, we are not sure exactly how it started and the different forms it took over the years. So, there is no straight answers to many questions in history. It was a process, so we can't give an exact date to it. Our next topic is interpretation of history. So, first, we will understand that what is the meaning of interpretation. So, the interpretation is the act of explaining, reframing, or showing your own understanding of something. History is narration of events from the perspective of the author. Historians give a perspective to the past events. That is the reason why historical events have different versions. History is full of such interpretations. So, an interpretation is someone's view of the past. It is created deliberately after studying the evidences. It is done after the events. Interpretation is done by someone who wasn't there at that time. So, history is not what happened. History is just what historians tell us. Each historian has a different perspective to an event. For example, according to the British historians, history of British period in India is all about the lives of the different officers like the Governor Generals of India. It begins with the first Governor General Warren Hastings and ends with the Lord Mountbatten, the last Viceroy. So it revolved around the main officials of the British. But for the Indian historians, the focus was on India's development under the British rule. Indian historians wrote about the lives of the common people, their means of livelihood, the food they ate, the clothes they wore, and about the society. The history of the common people is surely different from the history of the governor generals. So, we can conclude that interpretation differ in history as individuals interprets events differently. Now, it's time to practice what we have learned today. In the first question, you have to arrange these four parts A, B, C, D in a correct order. So I'll read them for you. A is the historians will find out that which source is more useful for him or her. B, the historians has questions about the past. C, the historians writes an interpretation based on the evidences. D, the historian finds sources to help answer these questions. So you have to arrange them in a correct order. Next question is state whether true or false and also correct the false statement. So these are the five statements. You have to tell whether these statements are true or false, and you have to correct the false statement in your notebook. Next, we are having some questions for you. Question number one, which four questions are important in history? So you have to tell the four questions through which we can know the history of a period more better. Next, why do interpretations differ in history? So you have to tell that how historians uh, differ in their interpretations about history, and you have to give example to support your answer. Next question is time in history. So in this, you have to tell that how the span of time is more important than a precise date, and you can also give examples which we have discussed in our video. So that's it for today. Thank you, and Mr. SpongeBob will see you soon in the next class. Bye, everyone.